Good morning, Mr. Anna. Hello, how are you?
Good, Guido. I ran out of time this week. I wanted to contact you and talk to you and Ian, but my week got very busy very quickly.
Oh, great.
How are you doing?
Um, I have a meeting now. I have an interview with the plastic surgery because it looks like they had to take some part of my skin in here. The, the malignous thing that I have in here is close to the skin. They had to like take part of my skin and place and insert place some, yeah. So I have a meeting with the plastic surgery
Yeah.
the 4th of October. So I'm going. I am taking medicine for the pain, so I'm taking care of it. No more pain anymore. There's no more
Oh,
pain anymore.
no more pain. Well, that's good.
Very sensible. Very sensible. I do very sensible, but no pain at all.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
that's wonderful because the pain was really
Annoying. Big
annoying
time.
there. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how else are things going down there? Do you know
How many?
when all of this
Hmm?
is going to happen?
The surgery?
Yeah, and all of that. Yeah.
It's going there. First was the cardiology. And second and now is the plastic surgery. So I had to, burn step by step. So
Yeah.
some people should be in the surgery. Also uh, the plastic surgery, the plastic doctor too had to be there to see, to fix the skin. So three doctors in the bed in the chirurgic the quirófano, the quirófano, the place where they operate, the cubículo.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? Three doctors, three doctors are going to be there at the time of operating. Cardiologist, plastic surgery, and mhm.
That sounds like quite elaborate. Uh, there's Ian coming
Yeah.
on. Hey, Ian.
Sorry, I'm a little late. I had my
That's
computer
okay.
in a different room. Had to go grab it.
That's okay. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I ran out of time. At the beginning of the week, things were quiet, and then suddenly towards the end of the week, I got so many clients, and because I wanted to contact you guys, and I just ran out of time. Reggie, how are you doing?
I think you're muted, Reggie, or something. We can't hear you.
Ready?
No, we still can't hear you, Reggie.
Don Reginaldo is from Mexico.
Now?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
now we can hear you.
Okay. Hello.
It sounds like you're in
No.
an echo chamber, but I guess being in that warehouse kind of thing, it's
Yeah, it's now it's different. A big warehouse. Yeah, and they told me that.
that way you don't have the dogs barking and the kids running around and
Oh my god. They are right here somewhere.
so everyone, how has the inner work been going?
Well,
Let me get that.
I've been having kind of a harder time with it lately. My energy's been a little low, and I've been super busy. I've been working like 5 hours almost every day, and
Yeah.
with 5 hours work.
Yeah,
But
there's also crazy energy in America just in the last week.
that
Just
is true.
whoa.
Yeah, a lot of this and a lot of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going down to California on Tuesday for about 10 days, stay at my parents' place while they're out of town. So I will have very minimal responsibilities, just kind of watching their dog, old dog. So I'm I'm looking forward to having some more time and space for
Just
work and
decompressing.
study and decompressing, hopefully some more sunshine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Reggie? How are things in Mexico?
Oh, we lost you again, bud.
Yeah.
Can't
Actually,
hear you.
I'm gonna put my headphones on too, or else
Maybe
I'll.
now.
Yeah, there you are.
That's
It's probably with my computer, I think. It's good. It's good. I've been working a lot, doing self-remembering, just small exercises, trying to do every day. It's better. It happens more often in the day. So I think it's good.
Are you able to self-remember when you're in the classroom teaching the kids? And
Yeah. You told me that, and it's good. It's an amazing exercise.
have you just done it with the kids for 5 minutes at the beginning of the class and just get them to be mindful? And
Yeah, I did that. It's better. I get connected, and it's good.
are are the kids? I mean, they're high school students. Are they responsive to it, or do they understand, or do they think you're their weird teacher?
I think it's it's like everything. Some work good, some others don't believe. So, but it's good.
Okay. What about you, Guido? You've got so much on your plate right now, but the inner work, has this helped you with the inner work at all, or? Um,
I keep on trying with the 60-point exercise and the 60-point exercise, not so much with the 60-point exercise. But this week, this 2 days ago, it's been hard to, it's been
yeah.
very, disturbing, not in a bad way, but kind of hard to keep the present with me.
Yeah.
Although I always think on the walk, and do some readings, but seems to be many other important things that attract my attention with so I cannot work that much as I wanted.
Well, you've got to worry about the surgery and everything that's coming
Yeah,
up, so that's very
yeah,
distracting.
exactly.
Yeah. So let's just bring our attention to our breathing. Bring our attention to the flow of air in through our nose, down into our lungs and back out again. And then bring our attention to our body breathing. And just become aware of our body and our body breathing. And focus on the sensation of self. And in your mind, silently affirm that we are doing this, I'm doing this for myself. First line of work. I am doing this for humanity. Second line of work. And I am doing this for Earth, for this planet. The third line of work. So we're not just working for ourselves, We're working for our fellow human beings and all life on this planet and this planet. Mr. Gurdjieff said that life is the evolving mechanism on this planet, and humanity is the evolving mechanism of life on this planet. And within humanity, you know, it would be the people on the mystical path, the people who are working on themselves, who would be the evolving part of humanity. And so if that evolving part of humanity stops working, stops evolving, it will have this backup effect on this planet, on life, on other people. Most people don't need to work on themselves. It's not that we need to work on ourselves. We really should. For me, it's a compulsion. It's something that I've always had to do. And those of us on the mystical path, we just don't really have a choice. But it's so far beyond ourselves. You know, every act has ripple effects. And so what we do has greater significance than we can imagine. So let's bring ourselves back to our body. And I'm going to do the, start with the 60 bone exercise. So I'm going to pull this up onto the screen. And just give me a second.
Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being. This is the 60 bone exercise. Become aware of all 3 bones in each finger and toe, and repeat a line from the wholly affirming prayer in the following sequence. Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being. Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being. Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being. Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being. Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being. Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being. Wholly affirming, wholly denying,
wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being, wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being, wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being, wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being, wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being, wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiate in me for my being.
So we're going to do the 12 joint exercise, and then we're going to move on to the 10 bone illumination exercise. So let me just share the screen again.
Sources of divine rejoicings, revolts, and sufferings, direct your actions upon us. This is a walking exercise, though it can be done when sitting. Bring your attention to each joint and silently repeat the word. Sources of divine rejoicings, revolts, and sufferings, direct your actions upon us. Sources of divine rejoicings, revolts, and sufferings, direct your actions upon us. Sources of divine rejoicings, revolts, and sufferings, direct your actions upon us.
And one more.
Holy God, holy firm, holy immortal, have mercy on us. Say the words, sense your bones, and visualize your marrow illuminating. Practice this exercise when walking, sitting, or lying down. Holy God, holy, firm, holy, immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God, holy, firm, holy, immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God, holy, firm, holy, immortal, have mercy on us.
So just bring yourself back to your body. Sensing your body, sensing your bones, sensing your joints, perhaps sensing your fingers and toes, the various other joints in your body, the bones in your body. And then let's finish with the collected state. So, as the Earth is surrounded by an atmosphere, we too are surrounded by an atmosphere, perhaps a meter, meter and a half. And try to keep your presence, your energy contained within this atmosphere. Do not let it leak out. Try to keep it still, calm, tranquil. And on the count of 3, just breathe it in and allow it to settle within you. 1, 2, 3. Breathe your atmosphere in and allow it to settle within you. And then let's just finish by affirming, may results from this exercise be transubstantiated in me for my being. Now, it's important to do inner work. There are so many different reasons on so many different levels, but inner work actually allows us to grow our being, and doing it in the right sequence, doing things properly. One of the chapters in Beelzebub Tales to his grandson for Mr. Gurdjieff was the proper form and sequence. So there is a proper form and sequence to doing these things. So it's good to, have the visual representation so that we can follow along. But this is all designed to help us to grow our being, to help us to awaken. I'm going to pull something else up on the screen. I've talked about this before, but it's very important. The decision exercise. And this is Mr. Gurdjieff's, as he's talking to one of his students in Paris during the Second World War. Decided in this special state. First, you must learn to relax, to become quiet. Second, once that is done, think and give yourself the task of making a program to accomplish what you have decided to do. Of course, you will lose this state. You will again become the slave of your associations. But what you decided in this special state, take it as a task, as a service. Third, you must never believe in yourself in your ordinary state. You justify yourself, you believe in yourself, but you must not. You must not forget how you decided your program, what state you were in. That is what you need. These three things are absolutely necessary. I can only answer you in this way. We are machines at a certain level. We're creatures of habit. We get up in the morning, we put our pants on. We always put our pants on in exactly the same way, either our right leg first or our left leg. We always step up on a set of stairs with the same leg. This is all done at a very subconscious level, but if you think about how our brain has to compute all of the various movements as we walk towards a set of stairs in order to step up on the same level, you realize how complex it is. And this habitual nature of ours, it actually helps us to conserve energy. We live at a lower level. If every time we entered a room and we looked at an object and we had to think about that object and go, well, it's this high and it's like this, maybe it's a chair, before we sit in it, we would spend our lives trying to figure things out that we have habitualized in our mind. You see a door handle, it could be, just a strip or a round or whatever, or you come to a door and there's something at that level, you figure out it must be some kind of a door handle. So we learn to habituate to things in order to save brain power. Beliefs are very similar. To believe in something is a mental shortcut, so we don't have to tax our mind and think about it. But this mechanical energy, and it's fueled by a specific energy. J.G. Bennett said that in World 48, in the world that most people naturally inhabit, and where their center of gravity, and using Mr. Gurdjieff's term, the center of gravity of their psychic life is in a very mechanical, habitual, automatic energy. And we are creatures of habit. And if we want to awaken, if we want to grow our being, we've got to step beyond this habitual range. We've got to step up into the range of personal consciousness or mindful awareness. And we've got to start learning how to break some of our habitual patterns. And this is where the decision exercise really comes into its own. Mr. Gurdjieff said that, number one, the first thing we have to do is we have to relax our whole body. And there are a number of different levels of relaxation. Apparently there are 7 levels of relaxation. Mr. Gurdjieff instructed a number of his students to first relax the large muscles in the body, then relax the medium muscles, and if at all possible, to relax the small muscles. And I have to admit, when I first encountered this, it sent me online, looking at, anatomical diagrams and what are the large muscles and what are the medium muscles and what are the small muscles, and trying to categorize them. But then I came across, the latest book that's really been put out there, G.I. Gurdjieff, Paris Meetings, 1943. He gives a little bit more detail because the people that he was speaking to, they couldn't just go online and research human anatomy and look at the muscles. Maybe they could have gone to the library and found books. But he said the large muscles are the ones that we relax first. So if you focus on your face and you just allow your face to relax, the first level of relaxation in your face will be the large muscles. Then, once you've relaxed the large muscles, you have to go back and do a deeper relaxation, which leads to the medium muscles. And Mr. Gurdjieff said that most people are able to relax the large muscles, and with a little effort we can learn to relax the medium muscles, but to relax the small muscles requires a lot of practice. But this is all part of putting us into that special state, that sacred state that he talked about. So first, we have to relax our body. So perhaps we can start with the head and relax the large muscles in the head, and then the medium muscles and the smaller muscles, and then go to the neck, throat, neck, shoulders, do the same, the arms, do the same, the hands do the same, the front of our torso to do the same, our back, our legs, to slowly and methodically work through the body. With my real group last week, I did a recording. I'm going to be posting it online of the 3 different levels of relaxation, going through it. And then came across the Willem Nyland draining exercise. So the muscles, we start and letting go, relaxing the muscles from inside. And then the draining exercise, I think it's the continuation of this process, because once you've got the muscles in the state of relaxation, it's you start with the top of the head, and it's like a liquid that flows down and begins draining out of the body, draining out of the arms, out the hands, draining down the torso into a deeper level of relaxation. And then once we have relaxed our body, once we have entered what Mr. Gurdjieff in that passage called that special state, it's important to then decide on a program, the decision exercise. And the decision exercise should not be complex. It should not involve other people. And to me, my understanding, one of the main purposes of the decision exercise is to focus on some kind of mechanical, automatic, and habitual behavior that we do, and decide to do it with conscious awareness. So rather than step up on a set of stairs with our right leg, to decide in that special state that we are going to step up with our left leg. So whenever we come to stairs, stepping up with the other leg. And to do this in that special state, to visualize the task, to sense ourselves doing the task. And in terms of visualization, we can actually do this one of 2 ways. It's probably good to do it both ways. One way is to visualize from the first person perspective, visualize it and perceive it, not just visualize, because we've got the full range of our sensory imagination. So to imagine, the movement, to imagine if there's a sound, if there's a smell, if there's a taste, as sensorily rich in our imagination, but from our body. So to imagine stepping up. And then another way to imagine it is to imagine ourselves in the second person, as if we were watching ourselves stepping up. So to set this task, and as I said, it should be a small task. Do not make this overly complex, but focus on some mechanical activity that you do on a daily basis, and then to relax yourself, and in that state of relaxation, to program this into yourself. So, I know that things that I've done in the past was stepping up with my left leg, because I always step up with my right leg. Other things that I've done is there's a very automatic routine, almost like a singular motion when you unlock the door. So for me, there was a time when getting the keys out and opening the door. washing the dishes, becoming conscious of the muscles involved, washing the dishes. Simple, small, little steps to change our energy, to begin to become more conscious. We live so much of our lives in this mechanical state, with our mechanical automatic subroutines. And we've got to start breaking them. We've got to start consciously doing things differently. Now, he didn't go into it there. Within J.G. Bennett, when he talks about the decision exercise, he says, and I've come across this elsewhere in Mr. Gurdjieff, not in that passage, is that we've got to set ourselves some kind of a punishment, particularly for the body, if we fail to accomplish this. J.G. Bennett said that at nighttime, you should review your day and review your tasks that you set for yourself. And if you did not do it, to do some kind of punishment. I think a good one is to hold the hands out 6-7 minutes. You will find that it gets really difficult towards the end. That's an act of consciousness. Mr. Gurdjieff says that when we hold our arms out, we accomplish a number of very important steps and tasks. And people that worked with Mr. Gurdjieff, some of them would do this for 2 hours, keeping their arms out. It allows us to enter into a certain kind of state, and it makes us aware of certain kind of sensations. But I think it makes a good punishment. It makes a good to the body. No, we don't want to do that. Mr. Gurdjieff, there's one of his famous aphorisms, do what it does not like. And it is referring to the physical body. The physical body is lazy. It wants to just do the things the easiest way. And so we have to struggle against that. We have to consciously bring our awareness and struggle with the body, struggle with its habitual automatic nature. So the decision exercise is a very important exercise. It's something that we should all be doing. And as I said, or as Mr. Gurdjieff said, we start in the relaxed state. Sometimes we wake up in a very relaxed state. Fritz Peters, in his rendition of the decision exercise, said that Mr. Gurdjieff told him to plan out his day and to think of a number of tasks. But in the morning, when he was still much more collected, still much more present, still much more within himself. This is, like I said, a very important exercise on this path and within these teachings. And when I was initially taught the decision exercise, I was told that Mr. Gurdjieff learned this from his father. And, his father taught him how to enter the special state and then make a program. And so it's something we should all be thinking about doing. We don't want to be machines. We don't want to live on the automatic energy. We don't want to just coast through life on automatic pilot like most people do. Most people walk down the street without any awareness of them really walking down the street. The body just does it, and they're somewhere else. Their attention, their presence is somewhere else. and they open doors and they sit down and stand up. Another good place to do a decision exercise, because we have such automatic and habitual postures as we stand up, as we sit down, rather than altering those, just to decide to become aware of how it is that we sit down, how it is that we stand up, to change things up. So have any of you, because I talked about this before a while ago, have any of you begun practicing this, doing it in maybe not a completely systematic way, but doing it, and have any observations?
Apply the information towards the daily life, but not,
I mean, I was talking to my Tuesday evening group years ago when I did it. I was living a number of subway stops over. Woodbine subway station would be the main subway station, and I have such a recollection of walking up the stairs at Woodbine subway station with my left leg starting on it. That was where I encountered stairs on a daily basis, one of the few places. And so, and there, if I forgot and I was still in the station, I would make myself walk down the stairs and then go back up. That was one of the forms of punishment. It's like, I forgot, and I've got to go back down, and I might miss my bus or miss the subway, but I always gave enough time so I could do that. And I got better and better at it. And as I said, another one of the exercises that I did was my keys, holding my key, consciously putting the key in the lock and opening the door. Trying to be aware of all the micro movements, all the automatic habitual movements. There's a whole sequence of events involved in turning a lock. Now, this was not part of the decision exercise, but at that same point in my life, I did something that drove me crazy. Not quite crazy, but every couple of weeks I would, because I have my keys in my right pocket, my wallet in my back right-hand pocket, and various things in pockets, and I would switch them. So what was in my right pocket would be in my left pocket, and the left pocket would be in my right pocket. And then when I got used to that, I would take half of it and put it in the other pocket, and the other half. So it's like, where are my keys? Oh, my keys are here. Because we create all these subroutines, all these ways of making our life simple. And we've got to stop doing that. Any comments? Any?
There was one time a while ago I tried doing the opening the door with my left hand instead of my right, and because it was like, I don't know, maybe because it was like the one thing that I was focused on. I forget a few times when I first started. I think I did it for maybe like a few days, 3 or 4 days. I open a lot of doors with the house that we run here, so it's always going into rooms, and it became a thing where before, like, as I would come up to a door, something in my system would kick in, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do something here, and then I'd kind of remember what it was and use the left hand. And I stopped after a few days because it seemed like it had kind of become a thing.
Become more automatic again, and
yeah, automatic and just kind of easy. Like I was, it's just the other hand now. It's just the other hand now, So I don't know. That's probably the only comment I have on it. I haven't done much. When you first introduced it to us before, I started to do just some physical exercise, like some sit-ups, before I would do my sitting practice. And I did that, but that's not quite. That's not a mechanic. That's not trying to mess with the mechanicalness. That's just adding something. So I'll have to kind of investigate it again this week.
Yeah, just, find some habitual subroutine that you do. There I just drink some coffee holding my right hand. I could have put the cup in my left hand and keep the mug and something different.
Mm-hmm.
We have an habitual preference for one side of the body if we're right-handed. The leader of the local Bennett group, the Bennett group no longer operates, but years ago, he spent 6 weeks training himself to do everything with his left hand, to write, to switch the dominance of his hand until it was good. I tried that, not as much as he did, but there were certain activities that I just can't do with my left hand. I don't want to, I don't want to say what it is, but it involves being on the toilet. It's just like, I just, and my writing is terrible, but I don't do a lot of writing nowadays, but, I do a lot of writing when I'm with my clients. I take copious notes. And I couldn't do that with my left hand. Sometimes I can barely read what I write with my right hand. But to just even practice, doing a little bit of writing with your left hand, to work on things that you don't normally work on.
Listen, while while seeing the reaction of my dog, he seems to be always a step ahead of me. I don't know. When I'm gonna stand up, when I finish the day, when I finish what I'm doing, I turn off the TV or turn off the computer. He always before I turn it off, he's always attentive to what I want to do. So,
Yeah, no, the dogs are interesting creatures. He's going, well, I was sleeping real nice on the ground, and what are you doing?
Yeah.
But dogs are very much creatures of habit. The ability to control it, the mindful awareness, they just don't possess that. So whatever catches their attention, they go this or that way. But yeah. But they're also very intuitive as well. So they can pick up on your moods, they can read your expression, they can do all sorts of different things. He's sitting there and then the cat's right over there. You can't see them. Yeah. Any other comment?
Yeah, I want to share. I call that a clock, an alarm. And for me, to be mindful is to be aware of haste. I discovered that I am on haste the whole time. And it's amazing. It's a very good clock. I try to, get things done very quickly, and I have to do this and that and go. And now I try to relax. I'm curious about what I'm doing. I try to see what happens, and because I am always worried about what's gonna happen. So it's a very very good clock. Oh my God, I'm on haste, and I'm trying to be mindful. Also, I discover a lot of attention. It's another clock, another alarm. I try to sense tension on my body, my leg, my torso, and stuff like that. So that's what I do to be, or to try to be mindful.
Yeah, I have the same. It's like I don't want to be late. Somehow that got programmed into me, and it's nice to thwart that, to sometimes be late and realize the world doesn't end.
Yeah,
And, there are people who are habitually late, and they get away with it all the time. And that's a hard one for me as well. And it's something that I've, no, I'm not leaving 20 minutes ahead of time. I will leave right on time. And if something happens on the bus or the subway or whatever, so.
Yeah, I have a phrase for that, and it's let's see what happens.
Let's see.
Try the waters, how deep the water is, because that happens. I mean, I have to how do you say that? I have a paper to complete, and it doesn't happen, anything if I doesn't. So let's see what happens, and anything happens. Most of the time, it's okay to be late, a little bit late about something. It's good.
Well, in Spanish, isn't it mañana?
Mañana, al rato.
Yeah. I mean, try to look for those places in your life where you are very habitual. I think I've talked about this before. I used to have a favorite seat on the bus and a favorite seat on the subway. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time on the bus and subway anymore because I work from home, so I don't have to commute. But there was a period where I self-remembered, and when you self-remember, you remember things more clearly, you're more aware. And so I would start and I would sit in one seat on the subway. I would self-remember in that seat, so I would remember that seat, and then the next time I got on the subway, I would sit on the seat beside it, if they were available, self-remember, and the next time on the seat beside it, and then I would work through, I don't know how many, 30 or 40 seats in a subway car, and then go back to the first one. And I also did that on the bus. Sometimes, with rush hour and when there are people, you can't quite do it. But it was, to realize that we have these preferences, that we have these lazy habits. I mean, for me, I always said I like to sit in this place on the bus because then I can spread my legs out a bit more, and some of the other seats, it's like a little bit more cramped, but it's not quite true. It just seemed that way to me. It was just my own internal preference. And so I started mixing it up. I started changing things. So where do you fall into these comfortable, habitual patterns? Self-remembering, mindful awareness, bringing ourselves back to our body, back to this moment, is probably the most important exercise we can do. But these other ones are just as important as well, because it makes us become aware of all of those things in our life that we do without really bringing any kind of an awareness to it. As a hypnotherapist, I know that if you can break or catch someone in the middle of an automatism, a habitual routine, you can really get them to quickly go into a trance. very famous hypnotherapist who developed his whole new line of hypnotherapy, the medical doctor, psychiatrist Milton Erickson, discovered that when you go to shake someone's hand, he would take the hand, look at the palm, face, and say, go into a trance. And people would go into a trance. Shaking hands is such an automatic and habitual routine. And there are all these steps involved in shaking a hand that we just move through without even realizing it. And you interrupt that. And you interrupt it with the correct suggestions. You can put people into a trance. So people call that now the handshake induction. And Mr. Gurdjieff also talked about these. We have these habitual automatic patterns of movement, of sitting, standing, walking, shaking hands. And it's like it's a whole sequence, and we're not aware of the different points in the sequence. And this was one of the purposes of the stop exercise, where he would yell, stop. And people would have to freeze in mid-movement and observe themselves. And, preferably if they were in some kind of automatic physical movement, and then stop at a very unnatural point in that, to observe it, to become aware of it. A lot of people try to do the stop exercise now, but there's a certain element, of danger involved. And this is why you need someone with the presence like Mr. Gurdjieff to, a room full of people dancing around, moving, and to go stop so that people didn't hurt themselves. But I know people have created programs so that when they're on the computer, they'll hear the stop and just try to stop and become aware of what habitual mental posture, physical posture, emotional posture you were in that moment, just as a way of seeing how we are creatures of habit. Any other comments on this? Any other? The next, few meetings, I want to try and bring us into, some of the other exercises that Mr. Gurdjieff gave. He gave many little different exercises. For instance, another very important thing to do is, and it involves sleeping, the conscious relaxation to go into the special state where we can engage in the decision exercise is also something that was recommended that we do before bed. And again, or not again, but this time it's to save energy, it's to conserve energy. Mr. Gurdjieff said, sleep little without regret. And he also said it's the quality and not the quantity of sleep. So during the first sleep cycle at night, our body at a very subconscious, automatic, and habitual level begins to relax and unwind. And so, the tension that we've held in our neck and shoulders and back and face, during that first 90-minute sleep cycle, the body just decompresses, so to speak. And at a subconscious, in the sleep state level, we relax. But Mr. Gurdjieff said it's important for our conscious mind and our subconscious mind to come into alignment, to work in harmony. So if before we go to sleep, and J.G. Bennett recommended doing this in a chair, otherwise you about halfway through the exercise, you fall asleep. Just to work through the muscles, working down the body and then working down into the navel to relax your body, to relax all of the muscles, so that when you go to sleep, this is already done. You did that task consciously, and you were able to consciously relax. So you do not need the first sleep cycle. So you can eliminate the first sleep cycle. Mr. Gurdjieff also said, he told J.G. Bennett this, that one way to conserve energy at night, and to conserve energy by not wasting a lot of it on weird dreams and whatever, is Mr. Gurdjieff recommended that as we're in bed, going to sleep, to bring to our mind some loved one or special person who's dead. And to imagine, perhaps our mother or our grandparent or whatever, that to imagine we can see them, and to imagine that we can tell them that we love them. And this was a way of allowing us to accumulate more energy when we sleep and not waste so much of it in the weird, discombobulated dream state. Another exercise that Mr. Gurdjieff gave, and probably the best account of this is in the Orajian version by C. Daley King, of the notes he took when he was in the group led by A.R. Oraj. And it's called the Nightly Cinema or Nightly Review. And here you imagine and you follow your day in the second person as if you're looking on a movie screen. And you see yourself going through your day. Now, scientists have determined that when we go to sleep, our short-term memory through the day goes into the hippocampus, which is sort of like a horseshoe-shaped part in the brain. And once we're in the state of sleep, it gets transferred into our long-term memory through the synaptic pathways. And they've determined, at least within mice, and they're pretty certain it also occurs within human beings, that it's like our day unspools in the second person visually as it's moving from the short-term to the long-term memory. So again, doing this at night before we go to sleep, we are actually taking a subconscious process that happens when we're asleep, and we're bringing it into our conscious awareness. And we are doing it consciously so that we don't have to do that when we're sleeping. And, as I said, Mr. Gurdjieff said, quality, not quantity of sleep. I can't find it now, or I'm not going to look for it now. But Mr. Gurdjieff talked about how when we dream, it's really one center watching another center. And at nighttime, we want to break the connections between all the centers and not dream. Scientists now have determined that we have 3 different levels of sleep. There's light sleep, there's REM, which is rapid eye movement, which is the dream state, and then there is a non-dream deep state. And it's the non-dream deep state that really brings cleansing and healing to the body. One of the things that occurs in that state of sleep is the gray matter in the brain. They say it shrinks ever so slightly. I don't think it shrinks. I think it's more metaphorically like sponge. And the sponge gets squeezed, and then, stuff, debris and everything is kind of squeezed out. And then following down through the arteries and veins in our brain it's like passageways open up at that point, and the cerebral spinal fluid washes down, and it washes the toxins out of our brain. So, there have been times when you've been in bed for 8 hours and you've woken up exhausted. And that exhaustion is actually the fact that those chemicals and the biochemicals that should have been cleansed from your brain are still, they haven't, because you haven't gone into the deepest non-dream state of sleep. So by doing all of these other tasks in our conscious state, just before we go to sleep, we do not have to spend as much time in sleep. One of the things about sleep or dreams is that dreams, there's a strong element of dreams that is the digestion of our emotions. So undigested emotions that we experience throughout the day often get digested when we're sleeping. But if we conduct a nightly review and see ourselves on a screen, part of that, there's some kind of element of that allows us to more fully and properly digest emotions. If you go through a real traumatic emotional experience, yelling or a fight or something throughout the day, an hour later or when it's over and you're back more in a collected state, to just visualize yourself in that moment. Through hypnosis, we've discovered that the visualization going forward in time and then going backward in time. So to see from the beginning, before you got into the fight and then the argument and then it ends, and then to rewind it. And that the rewinding actually has an element that allows us to more fully digest the emotions. And so if we can become aware of those emotional trigger points throughout our day, when we could have some residue of emotion that we have to digest at night, and we begin to do it consciously in our waking state. Actually, it's more than the waking state. It's like the state of personal consciousness. We do it as a mindful activity. We will eliminate the need to do that. And Mr. Gurdjieff said that every night we have the potential to create all the energy that we need to do inner work the following day. But people don't sleep properly. They dream, they sleep by thirds, they have centers connected, they don't properly digest emotions and various different things. And so we start the day not having the full allotment of the energy that we need to do the inner work. But another problem is that we waste a lot of that energy after we wake up. We waste it on negative emotions, on identification, on various different things. And so the two problems is one, we do not create enough energy at night because of our dream state, and we haven't really worked on ourselves. And the other problem is that you said what? And just getting upset like that, in a single very fiery argument, we could lose all of the energy that we could have used that day for inner work and may not be able to do the inner work. So these are all different steps, different techniques, different processes that we can do. Any comments? Any questions?
No comments. No questions. It's clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, but it's time to bring this stuff into the open, to discuss it, make people realize the importance of doing inner work. I think it was Aora Raj talking to C.S. Knott. And Aora Raj said that there are two kinds of people attracted to the work. There are those who are attracted to it theoretically. And I think he was implying Uspensky was in that category. And then there are those who are attracted to it and who are willing and who want to do the actual inner work, the inner exercises. Uspensky was too much in his mind, too much about self-remembering and self-observation and things like that. He did not want to do movements. He did not want to punish his physical body, to do the yard work and the gardening and all of the various things that Mr. Gurdjieff had people doing. In Anna Butowski's with Gurdjieff in St. Petersburg and Paris. And Anna Butowski was brought to Mr. Gurdjieff by Uspensky. They'd been good friends. She eventually stayed with Mr. Gurdjieff. She realized who he was and how important he was. But she was one of the initial 6 members of the St. Petersburg group. Dr. Sterneval, Anna Butowski, Uspensky, and 3 other people. And the first place that they lived in Paris was sort of a building in Paris. And Mr. Gurdjieff had the women on one floor, the men on another floor. And in the book, she writes about how Mr. Gurdjieff sent her with instructions. You know, there was a very important lady. By important meant that she had finances and that could help with the work that he was doing. But she was a British aristocrat, a lady, a titled person. And Anna Butowski actually had a PhD. She was an extremely accomplished pianist and musician. She came from the upper echelons of the Russian society, and she was asked by Mr. Gurdjieff to go and meet the lady. And she talks about how devastated she was when the lady arrived, and the lady wasn't going to stay for too long. And she came with like a dozen massive suitcases filled with dresses and stuff that she would never wear. And, you know, she had to try and get her to realize that, you know, you didn't need all of this stuff and whatever. And then she went. And when they finally went back to, it wasn't quite like a hotel, but it was a multi-story building before Mr. Gurdjieff got the prieuré, where they were in Paris for the first while. And she got back and she was, you know, devastated, and she talked to Mr. Gurdjieff about it. And Mr. Gurdjieff was very, very big on people learning to take care of themselves. So people would be put into the kitchen and would do kitchen work, and they would have to scrub floors. And Mr. Gurdjieff told Anna Butowski that this titled lady, who had probably never put a dress on by herself in her life, that they were going to scrub the floors in the men's floor. And Anna Butowski was just like, how am I going to do this? And apparently that lady loved it. She'd never done anything.
No.
I think I just lost my connection there for a second. Anna Butowski said that the lady loved it. Learning how to take care of ourselves. Mr. Gurdjieff gave himself a task. Every year he learned a new profession. So, you know, he could do things. You know, in Meetings with Remarkable Men, in the last chapter, he talks about that a little bit. But, you know, one year he would, you know, be a carpenter, and the next year a farmer, and the next year, and just changing up the tasks. And, you know, it's very important to pay for our arising, to take care of ourselves. So to learn to wash our own dishes, to learn to do our own laundry, to learn to sew buttons back on our own shirts, to learn to do things that, you know, we may never have done, that we need to take care of ourselves. You know, the pre-ERA, he would have, you know, people who were titled aristocrats scrubbing floors. They would be scullery maids. They would be peeling potatoes. They would be doing things they had never done before. And, you know, a person who can't look after themselves, who can't take care of themselves, is not really a person. That's man in quotation marks. We want to take the quotation marks out. And so this whole, you know, a lot of what's going on, you know, senses of entitlement and, you know, things that we can look around in the world today, it needs to change. I think most of us here, well, right now here, we know how to take care of ourselves. My parents got divorced when I was 16. And, you know, I stayed with my dad. And so from the age of 16, I've been cooking, doing my own laundry, taking care of myself. And I'm so glad that I had to do that. It really, you know, I, you know, met people in their 30s and 40s who did not know how to work a washing machine. Someone else had always done their washing. So, I mean, all of these little things, these things, you know, taking responsibility for ourselves, taking responsibility for our lives. And we're not owed a living. We're not owed our laundry done. We're not owed anything like that. We've got to do it ourselves. He hears something. He's normally pretty quiet. Any comments, any questions, any observations?
An observation. It's about a phrase that you said, and I discovered that I live in my mind a lot. I mean, I am, you know, making my life. I think, you know, because I am thinking of it a lot of time. I spend time, you know, fighting, talking to people, making or doing plans on my mind. And I forget a lot about the place where I right now. And it's also, you know, a very good discover. It's a very good thing to be aware of, how you spend a lot of time living in your mind.
Yeah. For me, what I used to do is I used to rehearse conversations over and over and over and over and over, because I wanted to, you know, when I would talk to them, and then I would never follow what I rehearsed, and it was just like this loop, and it's like stop, you know. I can rehearse it once. I let myself now rehearse it once, just to, and then, you know, not over and 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 over like I used to do. You're looking very thoughtful there, Ian.
Part of it is this chair that I'm in is rather uncomfortable, which is interesting. You know, it's kind of a, like, sitting here and I'm trying to not just be fidgety and be mindful, but also like not, you know, still be able to get up from the chair. I I don't know. I think I've always lived in my mind quite a bit, and right now at this point in my life, I just try to catch when I'm doing something like that, whether it's about a conversation with a person or whatever it is I'm thinking about. I just try to like you gesture, just kind of push it aside, and that's it. Like that's hard enough on its own to just be like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. It's not working.
Yeah.
Let me come back to my body. Let me come back to what's going on around me, and then it probably starts up again.
Yeah.
But whatever, I try and do that as much as I can so that I get better at catching it. And that not I want it to be like, oh, I'm being aware of my mind, I'm using it, I'm getting better. I don't know if I'm getting better. It's just there doesn't seem to be an endpoint to it. But it's helpful in the moment just to not, because what I'm noticing more and more is doing that, chewing on something mentally like that. It's kind of painful. It's subtle. It's just unpleasant. So not doing it is nice.
The other thing is there is a part of the mind that's higher than that verbal self-talk. And the self-talk is like clouds that block that higher awareness. It's more of a direct knowledge. And if we can learn to calm that self-talk, it's like those rays of real intuition or understanding can come through. And it's not verbal. It's hard to explain. It's something, we probably all experienced, but we don't realize just how strong the verbal self-talk is and how that wastes energy and blocks that higher awareness, that higher intuition, that higher, it's not the higher intellectual center because that works in hydrogen 6, which is the energy of the holy denying, which is beyond us. But there's a part of, the intuition is more of the symbolic mind. It's probably actually more connected to the higher emotional center, which is a deep intelligence. But as long as they're going, that steals the energy and blocks that awareness. So yeah. I remember when
clouds. Okay, gotta clear it. It's just cycling back around. But no, I'm sure there are things I just don't notice.
I remember as a 23-year-old student when I first encountered the Gurdjieff teachings, I kept on thinking, my thoughts are so important, I don't want to give them up. And it's not like I've given them up at all. But they're not nearly as important now. I'm beginning to realize that, it's just the monkey mind, just chattering and, be still in the mind.
It's a fake life, the one that I have. It's unreal.
Yeah.
I enjoy more now walking, for example, exercise, stretching. I try to stretch and try to be mindful. And oh my God, it's nice to do that.
Yeah.
That way.
Guido, any comments?
Yes, I am interested in knowing what happens when I disconnect myself when I go to sleep. It's something that bothers me. But I'm thinking now that if it could be a way to know the exact time when I go to when I go to sleep, when I go to sleep, like physically sleeping, but not the time when I disconnect everything. because that's a conjunction with the tiredness. My body's tired. I had to. I need to sleep to relax, but I want to know the exact time when this happened. To be aware when I disconnect myself with these words and I go to die, and I physically I'm dying, physically I die every night because I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
How can I detect that time, And when I wake up, I remember when I went to sleep. So something that it must be a mechanism to remember that, or to be aware of it.
But you're disconnecting.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that awareness is one center watching the other. And when we go to sleep, we want to break those connections so nothing is watching nothing, and you just go into that state. Now, someone asked Mr. Gurdjieff, is it possible to remain conscious while asleep? And Mr. Gurdjieff said yes, but that is so far down the path. And it's a really, really high attainment that it's beyond our ability as we are. And, it's one of those attainments that would be right towards the end, the ability to maintain a certain degree of conscious awareness in sleep and whatever. Mostly we want to disconnect. And Mr. Gurdjieff talked about disconnecting, just letting go at sleep. And there were times when especially when he was writing, his mind got so active that he would have problems sleeping. And he suffered from some extreme bouts of insomnia. And this was one of the reasons why he went on those madcap car rides, through France, because something about driving a car that's very physically exhausting. So that he would drive for a whole day at these speeds, and then he would be in the hotel and he would sleep. I've had bits of, problems sleeping my whole life, but I drove a taxi in England for 2 years, and I would drive for 12 hours, 6 days a week. Only time in my life I've never had any problem sleeping. It was just I'd put and I'd be gone, and I would wake up the next day because it's like, the energy of sleeping. It's the moving center. You're involving that, and you're depleting the body of that energy. And Mr. Gurdjieff said a lot of our sleeping problems are because we're so inactive. If we did physical exercises, the body hasn't exhausted itself. So the mind is exhausted, but the body isn't. And so we should engage in more physical activity to make sure that the body is there at this, ready to sleep. We're too sedentary compared to our ancestors in the way we should be. We're like these carriages that were designed for country roads, like he talked about, and how they're on smooth highways and roads when they should have been bumping around and getting a lot of work. But we pamper them. And any other comments before we go?
The last one.
Okay.
Also, it's I discovered how negative is my mind. Oh my God, it's it's okay to be thinking all the time, but I have to think good things.
Yeah.
It's always fighting. It's always moaning. It's always pain. It's always complain. Oh my God, it's bad. It's a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, it's easier to be negative than positive. It requires less energy. So, but when you gotta, yeah,
it's a lot.
That's
really
a difficult one. Yeah, it is.
And it's a very good one. A very good discover also how negative my mind is. I am negative.
Yeah.
A lot.
Okay, well, it's noon here in Toronto. considerably earlier in Portland, and I guess in Mexico and Colombia you're on the same time. It's 11 a.m. now?
11 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay, 11 o'clock.
11.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's 9 o'clock in Portland?
9 o'clock. Yep.
9 o'clock. Thank you, Ian. 9 o'clock Sunday morning. Okay, gentlemen, you take care.
All right. Bye,
We'll be in
guys.
touch.
Bye, Guido, Ben.
Good to see you,
Thank
Reggie.
So bye-bye.
See you next week.
I am. Because it's like I am.